Welcome to the Real Leaders Podcast.
Is what is your definition of a real leader?
Well,
Is a leader is able to
bring people together around purpose.
We're at the start and end of every business week. Leaders around the world
I'm from south of Brazil.
who are taking on the most pressing issues
Like Brazil is already sexist, but south of Brazil is top of it.
get the chance to inspire your career.
So like they really know how to not deal with women in business. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'll prove that we can do it.
These are their stories. These are your real leaders.
They don't make more followers, they make more leaders.
All made possible by Real Leaders Incorporated. Online, in stores, and around the globe. What a success story we have here today with venture capitalist Barbara Minuzzi from Brazil, who discusses her background, what led to her new passion in blockchain and biotech, as well as any advice for you out there who could use some inspiration. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the real Barbara Minuzzi. With Barbara Minuzzi. Barbara, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be here, and we're just outside, and you have a lovely view of the Bay. Is that not the Golden Gate Bridge, but the Bay Area Bridge?
Yes.
Well,
I just moved here, so I'm feeling really great.
And-
Loving this view.
And where'd you move from?
I was in Twin Peaks here in the
Peaks?
city.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's like it's a very nice view as well,
Yeah.
but foggy as hell. But
Yeah, I bet.
yeah, but you have a lot of nature, so it's great. And yeah, I was there for 1.5 years since I moved to the city.
Okay.
And it's like 20 minutes from everything else, so it's good also to be in downtown. Like Soma is just anywhere I go, it's like 5 minutes from here, so it's fine.
And I bet folks are dying to know, where are you coming from? Where did you start out? Where were you born?
Sure. So I'm from Brazil. I'm from south of Brazil. I moved to US 4 years ago, first Miami, and then I moved here. I have been an investor for almost a decade. I'm 30 years old now, so I started when I was 20, which was quite weird. It's still weird for my parents and my friends. So back then it was even worse. And first of all, I was an entrepreneur, so I was doing fashion design in college, and I realized I really wanted to have my own company. I started right away. I was doing great, but that's when, like, great in terms of sales. But that's exactly when I learned that working capital for a small entrepreneur, like, that has a lot of sales and needs to pay everything in advance and just receive the money like later on, can be like very unfair. So like my working capital was like super unfair with me. And that's when I really understood more about finance by doing it, like doing all my spreadsheets, understanding like, wow, how do I really make money? And then I understood that I wouldn't. And I was like, okay, maybe I should do something else. And because I was so young and my parents, they're doctors, they're not like, they have never done business or invested.
Right.
They were a little concerned, like, Barbara, you're 20 years old, and I started having like migraines because I was so anxious and concerned about all the deliverables that I needed to do. So I was just like, oh, what should I do? And they're like, I don't know, but something that should be healthier at least, because this is too much. I was always nauseous, plus the migraines. They're like, find something else. And then when I was studying and talking to friends, I noticed that the real estate market was booming in Brazil, and was just like World Cup, Olympic Games were announced, and there was like a chance of just bringing a lot of money, international money, to Brazil if we had like the great projects. So by studying that, I'm like, okay, I think I can do like small vehicles, and then I really studied like all the legal structure and the financial structure to do it, and then I start putting together like, oh, if I want to raise 1 million reais, which is like our currency, I would split that like in shares of 50K, and then talk to my friends, in fact, like their parents, because they were as young as me, so they didn't have money. So I would talk to their parents, like, hey, do you want to invest in this project? And it was something new in Brazil. My first projects, they were all low-income houses, so I didn't really have the risk. I had like, oh, Brazil is booming, international money is coming in, we need to solve like the lower class residents, like we need to have like houses for them. So the whole economy made sense, and it was like very low risk for an investor, and the results were like fast. So like I would do a project, 6 months later, I would be already returning the investment to them. And then they would be like, wow, she's doing something right? So it was kind of easy. Not easy, but it was kind of fast proof that I was doing something right. And then I did that for 3 years, yes. And then in 2013,
So
like...
let me stop you right there. So that was a lot. So you're first following your fashion. And folks, if you're listening to this, Barbara's got a lot of swag. She's got a lot of nice stuff going on here. Her house is beautiful, very well decorated. But so you're following your fashion passion, if you will, and then you make this aha moment, and you say, "Oh well, I'm 20 years old. The fashion isn't really getting me to where I want to be. This investing stuff and the financial aspect of investing and raising money and bringing it in and dividing up my shares and helping out low-income families, it all kind of made sense for you." And it all kind of came together in that I guess for over the 10 years that you've been doing this. How do you make that decision and say, hey, I'm just going to run with this? Was it just a spontaneous thing? This is what I'm good at, or?
No, it was tough, especially because when you were so young, I was 20 and I was doing fashion design for 3 years already. So like from 17 to 20, I was like an entrepreneur trying to do that. And to make a decision that you think you already have your career and that people will be like, oh my God, she doesn't have any goals, or like she doesn't really know what she's doing. Mm-hmm. I was really afraid. I was like, how can I switch? Like I'm a fashion designer, like now I'm an investor. Like no one will like really trust that. But I really, like every time I like something, I go deep and then I study and I learn. And when I really saw that there was like an opportunity there, not only just by investing on it, but to change things. And I'm a big believer of big changes, right? Like in Brazil, we didn't have low-income houses until then, and you see, wow, that's happening, and I can be part of this. And if I can bring people that have money to be part of this, maybe that's my strength. And I noticed that fundraising for projects that I really understood.
Is that the hardest part? Is fundraising the hardest part? I mean, I was talking to a financial firm that was saying, oh, here, give me 250 names of your closest friends and family and calling them on the phone for money. And I'm sitting back here, I'm like, what? Like, I'm 22 years old. Like, I don't want to be reaching out to my friends and family and ruining my reputation with them and asking for that money. Yes, I want them to be aware that I'm a financial advisor, but I don't even know at that time if I have the confidence to handle their money and go out there and stick my neck out and say, hey, can you lend me some money or something like that? And you just told me that you were asking for $50,000, not from your friends, but from your friends' families.
Yes.
What's that process like? Is it harder? Is it?
In the beginning, I was afraid too. I was like, how do I do this? Like, how can I just like reach out and like, what are you going to say? Like, are they just like going to laugh on me? Whatever. Right. So I was afraid. But as anything I do in my life these days, I'm a little afraid. Every big decision that I make, I'm like, oh. But then I just do it. And that's what I did. Like, oh, should I? Yes, I should.
It worked out.
And then I started like connecting. And the more you connect when you're fundraising or doing anything, like every 100, especially at that time, every 100 people that I would reach out, one would say yes. And then, like from that one, it wouldn't go more like for the people that I should follow up, that person would just say like, hey, talk to my friend. He will also like what you're doing. Right. And then it would go like through that other side.
Interesting. Okay. So what really kept you going? I mean, I guess a lot of people are inspired every day by their passion. Fashion was yours at first. And then it goes into, hey, I really want to make this work. But like you said, you reached out to 100 people and sometimes only one would get back to you. That's got to be a little defeating at some points. What kept you going every single day?
I have two passions since the beginning, since fashion. The first one is like seeing ideas and transforming them in reality. I had that like with textiles that I would transform in clothes. Okay. I had that like with lands that I would see people living there later. Gotcha. Shopping mall, anything, you would just like transform a land and then you see it's real. People, you change their lives because of that. So fashion was like not that important, you know, like you're doing something, but you don't see like the change. But then when real estate came in my life, I was like, whoa, this is like huge. Like you really, I'm part of this. And that was like that's the passion. But what keeps me moving is the challenge. I'm obsessed with challenges. So if it's hard, if I can't really do it, I'm probably doing it. So it was always like that. Fashion didn't make any sense when I was 17. And when I was 20, going to finance, like it's private equity in real estate, right? So like doing private equity in real estate, no, it doesn't make any sense. I'm from south of Brazil, which is extremely sexist. Like Brazil is already sexist, but south of Brazil is top of it. So like they really know how to not deal with women in business. And when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I'll prove that we can do it. And then everything else is just like another challenge and another thing that I see that it will change the way we do it or we see it today. So I'll do it.
And still in today, in 2018, it's still sexist down there. That's what you're kind of
Yes.
saying. And so you move to America and you realize, hey, these VCs are actually pretty nice. And, you know, this is something that I feel like I could fit in. And so kind of explain to people what you're doing now in terms of creating a positive impact in the world and investing in social enterprises.
Yes. So first of all, I don't really want to say that I'm an impact investor. I just like to say I'm a VC.
Okay.
And why? I really think venture capital is the way of doing philanthropy, the right way, because we're investing, like most of the companies we invest or most of the people we will invest in, they will fail. So we have enough data to know that 90% of our early stage bets, they will not deliver any results for us in terms of finance, but they will deliver a lot of results for us in terms of learning and changing things in a small way. So if we do that, and we do that a lot, yes, that's extremely impactful and that's positive. And a lot of people, when they do only philanthropy or they just donate money, they don't have a lot of metrics. They don't have a lot of measurables. They are not like really checking every single thing they donate because it's not an investment. When you do investments, like you're really trying to see like how you can do that better. You are really hands-on. And that's why I think it's so important to do VC, because that's like the real way of changing things, you know?
And what are you working on right now?
So I'm in love with biotech and one specific area in biotech, which is clean protein. So
Clean protein.
yeah, so imagine now we have meat, fish, pork, a lot of early stage companies developing lab grown meat. So you have, like we have finless foods, which is fish. They do it through the stem cells. They already have like the first try, the first batch, and it's good. It's working. And then you see Memphis meats. You see like also plant-based clean meat is the same clean protein. So like you have Impossible Foods. You have other companies, and they're all really doing in a clean way. So if we already have problems of demand worldwide, we will not be able to support all the demand that we have for food. And then we also have the lack of cleanness. Like most of these products we have out there, they're not as clean as they should be. And then you lose a lot, but you're also like really eliminating a lot of the nature. So like you're fishing, you're not using like not even like 1/5 of what you're like fishing, like taking out of the nature, and you're just throwing away because it's not good enough.
Right.
And once you do like clean protein, like you're doing it. You're just like doing for the stem cells. You're like just producing what matters, which is the meat, and not like really the fish or like the cow. So like it's sustainable, it's efficient, and it's clean. So like it's good in every single way. And I'm not even talking about engineering any of these things, because if we do, that can be a big fight, because a lot of people will think it's like unethical to change and like to really like add one thing or another. I'm totally fine. I'm a big believer of challenges and change.
Right.
So like you do it all together, yeah, I'm in. So I really think that's good, but not going to that side, that is a little bit more, there's a lot of diverse opinions on that, but just like thinking about the real solution on sustainability and protein, that's amazing.
And I want to stop you right there. So I'm thinking, so like it's called clean protein. So essentially, if I had that right, there's a lot of commercialization of fish, and a lot of fish are being caught and not used, and it's unsustainable. It's harmful for a lot of animals, and where, you know, why not just eat a a fish that tastes the same, it's healthier for you, and it's made in a lab.
Exactly.
It kind of just makes sense, and that's some interesting stuff, and it really hits home for a lot of people because at least myself and a lot of people that I know are big fishermen. Raised in the Northwest, and I had that opportunity to go to Alaska and fish on one of the most popular rivers for salmon this summer.
Yes.
This was the first time when that family I stayed with had a down year. Where in past years there are 120,000 salmon coming up a day to lay their eggs, and coming from the ocean to lay their eggs upriver, and so they come downstream. This is the first year where their largest day was 60,000 fish, and when usually it's 120,000 fish. So we don't know what occurred. Really occurred that. So I'm not an expert on that issue, but I can tell you that commercialization fishing and then climate change as well may have played a factor in that. Just a guess, probably happened. But that's interesting stuff that there is a solution out there, and people need to be aware of it, and that's creating change in the world, and that's what we find so fascinating here at Real Leaders. So biotech, so that's interesting. And then we were talking about blockchain a little bit earlier. Explain to people what investments you have in blockchain right now.
Okay, blockchain, we have 3 divisions, I would say. The main one, which is the foundational technology. So everything we need to make it possible that we're really using apps on the top of blockchain, right? That we're using the technology. Now we're still on the early days. So we have a lot of ideas. We have a few apps that work. Most of them are just getting started. So we need to invest first on the technology, that layer. And then we go to things that are more useful. So let's say empowerment, that's what the second division, which can be an app that sends money to another country. So there's a lot of cases now that you probably heard about that, like Abra. It's an app that you can send payments or send money to your family in Brazil or in Africa, and then you're not paying all the fees that you would be paying to Western Union. And depending what kind of country you're sending money, you might be paying 10%. Average is 7%. So let's say you were working in US, you still have your family in Brazil, and you were just making $100 per week. Then you send that, you already lost 7 to 10% of that money just in the transfer, and that's tough.
Right.
So you're just reducing the fees. By reducing the fees, you're empowering people. So that's what I call empowerment when we go for blockchain, and that's extremely related to the cryptocurrencies. So you can't really do that if you don't have Bitcoin. If you don't have another coin that you can really send through the app, if you're sending dollars or any other through Western Union, we will be paying the fees. So you need the cryptocurrency to be able to use the app to make that possible.
Now, what are people skeptical about using it? I guess when I hear it, I say, okay, well, I'm going to send via blockchain, a decentralized system, to my family in Brazil. I'm going to send them $100. So what's great about that is I don't have to pay the 7% that I would have to pay otherwise. The downside of that is I might have to be using, I guess the downside right now is for me, I don't have any Bitcoin. So I would have to purchase, is that how it works? I would have to purchase Bitcoin and then send that to them. They would receive it in Bitcoin value, and then they would be able to use that with whatever services that accepts Bitcoin.
Yes.
Is that correct?
So there are things that are happening that is good. Some banks are partnering up with some apps. So Brazil, especially developing countries, you have banks charging a fee on the top of that, but instead of being 7% in total, you'll be paying probably 2.5 with the bank included. So it helps because then the customer, he doesn't even know it was a crypto transaction. He'll see the bank, he'll go there, he'll receive the money, he'll pay less fees. I think that's the best way of doing it because people are not ready. So with the app, with the cryptocurrency, with changing from one to the other, switching, it's just too hard and people are not ready. And but it's really because people are closed-minded and not willing to learn. The whole financial crisis in US, if you go what do people really know about finance? What do they know about where is my money when I put my money on the bank? They don't know, and it's just a matter of being really out there, and everyone is doing, and then there's trust, and then everyone just follows. But
And I had the opportunity to interview a company called Tech, and what they do is they use blockchain to send donations to refugees.
Okay.
So why would you use blockchain? Well, I guess the way that he explained it to me, and to add to your point, is it's transparent.
Yeah.
So you are going to be able to see, and it's very secure. You're going to be able to see where your money is in real time until it reaches the actual location, and then people in that area can accept that donation, and you can see what it's being spent on. So instead of donating to a nonprofit like the American Red Cross, don't want to hate on them at all, but in the past history, they're not being as transparent with where their money is being allocated to. So I think there's a statistic that, and don't quote me on this, but it was around like 20% of all the proceeds that were given for the hurricane money was actually used on the hurricane relief with the American Red Cross. So that's a big problem, right? Because people think their money is going to that area where, in fact, it's actually not. What with blockchain you're saying is these investments, the financial crisis, people don't really know where their money is. Blockchain, you can see it in real time and where it's going. Now, what is the downside to that? Don't the transactions take longer?
Yes, it still take longer, but if you compare it to a bank, like you would pay $30 to have a same day wire, and you would pay $15 2-day wire, and you would pay I don't know what, like for 3 days, but it's just like you pay fees to have the efficiency from like the financial institutions right now, and it is lower for the apps and for crypto, but it's not 3 days. It's like maybe an hour. Now it's just a few minutes, but it's slow.
Right.
But people are not like really doing on the right way on the other institutions, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Well, I think what you're saying is spot on. It's like people are kind of
For that use case, right? Like remittance, like for that is like quite fast. I mean, for payments, that is slow. Like we can't really do payments in the way we would like to do with crypto. Yeah.
And I think you were spot on with what you're saying. It was like people are kind of just they're not insecure, but they don't really like the word blockchain, and that's just a mental thing. That's just there is a time that it takes for people to get a learning curve, really. And we're at this conference at Singularity this past week, and people are saying, well, get ready because everything from technology is going to be exponential. If you look at Moore's law, and everything's going to be going straight up. And right now we're at the elbow of that curve. So once people start getting older and older, and the younger generation is coming up, people are going to be more in tuned, more educated about blockchain and its wonderful gift that can give to transparency and money. So, why invest in blockchain? What is this one thing that stands out to you that says this is what the future of money and transactions are going to be?
The main thing about blockchain is really it's a technology, and it is disrupting a lot of other technologies we know and a lot of services. And what you said about transparency, decentralization, empowerment, all that matters, and all that is related to blockchain. So that's why I'm bullish. Like I'm a really believer, and even now it's so annoying because the market's down, and you see like all the crypto investors from last year, they're all out, and then you see like the real people, the real crypto people that really believed in the technology and still believe. We are all on the same page. Like we're not concerned. We're not, especially like some of them think they're losing money. We're not losing money. Like we're playing on this like for the long term. We really think the new generation, our generation here, like we will use crypto. We will use crypto like every single day. We'll see this technology disrupting a lot of other fields in our space, and that's fine. That's what should be done, So it's just annoying to see a lot of people, they just like read the headlines and then they don't read like the entire article and they don't even know what's going on.
Is there anything you're worried about though? I mean, I guess the one thing for me would be the cryptocurrency. It's Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin going to be that alternative? Is that going to be the coin of the future, or is there going to be a new coin that's going to come in?
Yes, it's a new coin. Like we consider Bitcoin, I consider Bitcoin more like the digital gold, and that's like huge market, huge value. Bitcoin will keep growing just because it was so well done. And if you haven't read like the white paper, it's just like 10 pages, and it's really worth it because it's so simple, and that's where you really understand like how special is this. And then you understand like Bitcoin, it's a protocol, and then you want to have more. Like, okay, this was really perfect to store value, and that's why it's our digital gold. But it's not like really efficient. It's not that fast. We have like scarcity. How do you say? Like, have a limited amount of bitcoins, right? So you know that that's not a currency. That's not something will be used to do payments, and that's also one of the concerns from last year when the market was going up so quickly. If you're sending money to Brazil, the money was just like you were planning to send $100, and when you see it's like $250. Good if it's your family, bad if it's a payment, right? But anyway, so that's why Bitcoin wouldn't be the use case for payments or like as a currency. But there's a lot of stable coins being launched. I imagine that especially like developing countries or just like Venezuela and other countries that are just like they have their own, and I think that could work. What can go wrong? It's probably what will go right, which is US really adopting blockchain, and then you having like the government using. That's all they should want and should have. You have transparency about every taxpayer in this country, and then you probably get a lot more taxes paid instead of just like trying to go for the IRS in the way they do. So I think that will go wrong in the sense that the decentralization will not happen. The whole idea of blockchain will kind of be stopped, but in a very good way, because then you're like really having the power and the influence we need to have everyone else understanding that, yeah, this works and we should trust.
Now, for our listeners back home, we're talking about blockchain right now. We're talking about biotech. You're in fashion and you're doing this now, and it's so cool. Did you ever think when you were in Brazil you were going to be doing this 10 years ago?
No, never.
No? And what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Especially these days, I have one of our venture partners is 22 and the other is 19. And I think they are better examples than what I would be like 10 years ago. So the advice I give to them is like really hustle, study the more you can, like really go deep, see what you want, be aware, like be connected, because there's so much going on. And if you're really listening and paying attention, like you'll find what you want to do. And it will change along the way, but you have like that connection that will make you just like go deeper and not rest. Like there's like now we shouldn't be resting. There's so much to get done. I would say to this 19, 10 years old, just like go for it, work as much as you can, study as much as you can, and get things done. Like don't be afraid.
Right. And so being a part of this podcast, we view you as a real leader, somebody who sees a bright future and is doing something about it. What would you say your definition of a real leader is?
Wow, that's a good question. I really think, at least the leaders I follow, it's just like they inspire me so much by doing and not by talking. Like, and I think that's like the real leader. You want to see people doing, and then you just know it's right, and you want to be part of that too. And that's why the whole thing is like good leaders, like great leaders, they don't make more followers, they make more leaders, and that's what you want. Like when you have like the real leaders, you're like, oh, that's so interesting that you probably follow for a little, but then when you see, you already become a leader and can be the leader of your own life. But that's the thing.
Well, Barbara, well said. We appreciate the hospitality here. You got a lovely place, and hopefully we'll connect in the future down the road.
Oh, thank you. It was really nice.
Thanks for your time. And that wraps it up for episode 7 with Barbara Minuzzi. What an inspiring woman who has raised millions of dollars for good causes. What I found most interesting was that she said or mentioned that venture capitalism is the best way to do philanthropy, and investing in companies that have an emphasis on ethical and environmental improvement is the way to go. Just another example of business being used as a force for good. For next time on the Real Leaders Podcast, I chat with Marco Annunziata. the chief economist at GE, where we dive into transparency, how new innovation is causing economic policy change, and basketball. More inspiring stories, more real leaders, next on episode 8.